Andrew Jeune here with your Asian Racing Review, joined as always by Michael Cox, editor of the Asian Racing Report. And Michael, coming off a big weekend, particularly in Japan as well, the running of the Satsuki Sho there, and quite a remarkable performance in actual facts from the lightly raced but very talented Oriens.
Yeah, first we had Liberty Island last week in the Oka Show in Phillies, and then we have Oriens at just his third start, just going bang, coming from well back in the field at a rain-soaked Nakayama. There's a lot to like about this in terms of both the wow factor and the upside. You can see there he's just stormed home over the top of him. But the footage that I would point to as far as upside is concerned, with the isolation cam on Oriens, is Takeshi Yokoyama tries to steer this horse around the turn there at Nakayama. It's a strange track. It's a quirky course, especially to run big races on, right-handed, and you look at him there, he looks like a seven-legged crab trying to get around an ice rink. He's driving a dodgem car at the Royal Easter Show there, Yokoyama.
Yeah, my go-to expression is normally a shopping trolley with a wobbly wheel in these sort of situations. Yeah. That's exactly what he was. There was just no balance at all, but then to straighten up and do what he did after that is just purely incredible.
Yeah, and it doesn't leave them much hope for the future races, where they're mainly heading, of course, to the Tokyo Yushun, the Derby, in late May, and we'll have our latest Tokyo Yushun rankings there for Asian Racing Report, where we ask a panel of experts to rank 1 through 18 their top prospects for the Derby, and Oriens, he goes from 2 to 1 with that win and a big shake-up of the rankings right through. We have a look at the top 5 is not in order, but is the top 5 from the Satsuki Sho. It's the biggest guide to the race. But Oriens, you look at like 1 through 5 are the top 5 there, but feel like there's a bit of a gap between 1 and 2.
Because it looks like he's going to improve for the extra distance, and in that respect, it's very hard to see anything out of that particular race anyway, improving past him.
Well, and especially warmer weather, Tokyo, left-handed, big straight. I mean, he's not going to have that same degree of difficulty getting around the turn there. It's a chance to just level up, straighten up, big wide track, and just point him for home. He should be too good for them. Anything from outside of that, the other big move was the drop from Dolce Moore, who was disappointing in the New Zealand Trophy, the Group 2. He'll run in the NHK Mile next, and not to step up to the 2500, but really not much from outside of there that should threaten in terms of quality. He's another son of Kitasan Black, same sire as Equinox, who's the talk of the town right now. And yeah, some great stuff in the last few weeks on Asian Racing Report from David Morgan and the Asian Bloodstock Review. Every Wednesday, you can have a look at the breeding of some of these top prospects, and Kitasan Black's rise as a sire there in Japan.
We talk about the breeding quite a lot in Japan in terms of how they seem to be getting it right time after time with the horses we then see racing on the international stage. But also it's interesting for me to look at his how they've campaigned this horse. As you say, 3 starts. He had 1 start as a 2-year-old. He debuted over 1,800 metres, and he's had 2 starts now over the 2,000. He'll jump to the 2,400 metres. I mean, that's completely alien to how they do it in other jurisdictions.
Well, given what's at stake, it's actually amazing. And there's a lot of performance-based in Japan, a lot of testing these horses. It's such a tightrope, right? There's so much. If he has a bad day, what's that worth to this horse's value as a stallion? It's amazing. And there's just a different mindset in terms of building a stallion's worth and the way that they're marketed. I think because there's not a multitude of stud farms, there's one dominant Shadow Stallion station and one dominant group of breeders, the Yoshida family and Katsumi Yoshida at the center of that. I think that they can afford to make things performance-based and see who rises. I visited Shadow Stallion station last year, and I sort of went in there with an angle of like, who's going to be the new dominant stallion? They'd lost Deep Impact, they'd lost King Kamehameha, Duramente, the sort of new young stallion on the rise, died at 9 years of age. So who's going to be the next? Who do you think? And there was a genuine shrug of the shoulders, and the answer was like, well, let's see who rises above. Let's see who proves themselves to be the next big thing. And Kitasan Black really has that look, especially given the numbers. Take a look at our latest newsletter and story from David Morgan there, and the comparisons, very early and tentative comparisons with Deep Impact. But if you look at the numbers of horses that they've had in their first few crops, this is just his fourth crop heading out now. It's a great sign for him as a sire.
And I suppose the most exciting clash possibly we're looking forward to later in the season is the filly now meeting the colt in Liberty Island. That looks like the two standout performers within their own divisions.
Well, this is a great thing about Japanese racing. So few Group 1s. It's possible that you get to the Joao Moreira and it could be Liberty Island versus Oriens versus Equinox versus title holder versus Dojus, right? There's nowhere to run except overseas and go and pick off a weaker Group 1 somewhere else, maybe the Arc.
Maybe. We'll leave that for another time. Champions Day, Hong Kong, Sha-Tin's not far off. We've got the 3 Group 1s to look at. We've got the Mile, the Chairman's Sprint Prize and the QE2 Cup as well. Starting off with the Mile, Golden 60 is going to be dominant favourite there, trying to get some revenge on California Spangle, obviously beat him back in December. We'll also have a very short prize favourite in the Chairman's Sprint Trophy as well, in the shape of Lucky Sweynesse, who appears to have Wellington's measure at this stage. I haven't given up on Wellington just yet, but the interesting thing out of these 2 races, Michael, may well be that if and when these 2 horses meet, Lucky Sweynesse and Golden 60, and whether it's in Hong Kong or whether it's possibly in Japan.
Yeah, we flagged it a few weeks ago. Lucky Sweynesse possibly looking at the Yasuda Kinen in early June at Tokyo. That would be a mile for the first time for Hong Kong's dominant sprinter. He's gone 1,400 metres twice. It's a strange decision to me to think that you would go to Japan and contest a mile. Great for the sport, good on you for trying. Good prize money there in Japan, but tough opposition, albeit at the moment, we talk about the strength of Japanese horses and we just talked about all of that talent in the staying ranks, middle distance and staying. The mile category at the moment, not so strong. Sprinter milers. So if there's a time to go and contest it, but if he does go over to Tokyo in early June, Lucky Sweynesse, and step up to a mile, he might be facing Golden 60. I spoke to Golden 60's owner, Stanley Chan, today. No word yet, just in light of Lucky Sweynesse entering there, where were they at with Golden 60? And he's potentially traveling overseas for the first time. And they said all of their focus is on, Stanley said all of his focus is on this race coming up, the Champions Mile. Once that's run, they'll make a decision on whether Golden 60 presses on to an overseas target. Obviously, the moment after that race, win, lose or draw, unless he's incredibly disappointing or something goes wrong, the focus will immediately come on whether the horse will travel to Tokyo. So no word yet there on Golden 60.
All right, and whether Lucky Sweynesse will join us. Lots to talk about Lucky Sweynesse and a potential Everest target as well, but I think that's just talk at this stage. There's no obviously someone's come forward at this stage, but it would be interesting all the same if they went down that road.
Yeah, I think he was about $11 in fixed odds markets for the Everest. I don't know. Would you be? Obviously, there's a clear favourite. Well, there's a couple of clear standouts there. Giga Kick, I Wish I Win.
Who won again? Giga Kick won very well on the weekend. Again.
Yeah, but I mean, beyond that, something from outside the square. Like if you don't, it's hard to imagine something else emerging between now and then that would challenge those two for that sort of dominant spot. So maybe something from outside the square is to go, and an overseas contender that is from outside those form lines.
All right, we'll leave that, or the sprints and Lucky Sweynesse, and move to the QE2. In terms of the lineup here, we've obviously got Romantic Warrior clashing with Dubai Honor, who's been brilliant this time in Australia. His last 2 wins, joined towards the top of the rankings with 2 Japanese horses, Hishiaguazu and Down on the Kid, who've both finished second on International Day in the past in the Cups in consecutive years. Hishiaguazu behind Love's Only You, and Down on the Kid behind Romantic Warrior.
James McDonald gets back on Romantic Warrior. He ran an enormous race in December. The theory is that he, in our ratings, people at Asian Racing Report had him running one of the greatest races of all time there, and in that performance, there's a theory that when a horse goes that big in terms of a career best, it can take the edge off his subsequent performances. And I think there's maybe something to be said for that around Romantic Warrior, that hasn't replicated that performance since. Look, if he runs near that again, it'd be very hard to beat. He's very short in markets. I think he's even money in fixed odds markets. I think he'd be around that again. Dubai Honours come down and burst the bubble of Animo. Can he go back to Sha Tin where he's ran before, fourth behind Love's Only You in the Hong Kong Cup? Can he go back there and burst another bubble in Romantic Warrior? I don't know. Let's see. It'll be interesting to watch his track work in the next week, just to see how he has travelled, holding condition. Obviously, he came to Australia and went 2 for 2. Let's see. It's great to see something different there and a genuine European contender in that race.
One horse, I mentioned those top four as far as the rankings are concerned. The lowest rated horse, international ratings wise, is Prognosis. But lightly raced, might be a bit of upside.
He's won 5 of 8 for Mitsu Nakachita. Zach Purton takes the ride. Look, he's a horse, lightly raced with some upside. And one thing about this race as well, it's a tactical race. If you can run close, it's 2,000 metres at Sha Tin. We saw Joao Moreira win the race on Neo-Realism with a mid-race move. Look, not ruling out. Comes in form. Again, let's watch track work during the week. Let's see how he settles in. He's got the right man aboard. But I think of the 3 races, obviously, this is the standout with some international interest there and some genuine overseas contenders.
Yeah, and it is the main events of the day. And it's got a lineup to back that up. You mentioned Joao Moreira there. I know you spoke to him a couple of days ago. He's finished, well, actually the championships ended a couple of weeks ago, but he had another good weekend. Lots of talk about what he'll be doing next and whether he stays in Australia.
Yeah, there's some sort of, it's puzzling, right? And it's like we've reported this is his farewell tour. We've reported in graphic detail what's wrong with his hips, both of them. He's got a one's more severe than the other. He's receiving treatment on his hip to keep him riding, his left hip. That gives him a temporary reprieve from the pain and allows him to push through and ride. He believes he's probably got 18 months left of riding, and this is his farewell tour. But it's just the questions persist. It's like when he has success, rather than sort of celebrating the fact that he's pushed through the pain barrier and he's managed to just eke out another few Group 1 wins and have this success and celebrate it for what it is. People seem blind to it and just say, oh, are you going to stay and ride more? Are you going to make Australia your home? So the answer is, I think, no. I mean, obviously people are keen to have him here and he's getting great support and he's very grateful for that. But Joe's final day will be next week. He'll ride in Hong Kong on Champions Day, but that will be on the way back to Brazil, where he really has some unfinished business in Brazil. I think people underestimate, coming to the end of his career, how much it means for him to win some of these races back in Brazil. Yeah, he's got one more shot at some of these big races in Rio. He wants to tick them off because he's been away from home for a long time. The prize money is appalling compared to what you'd expect, but it's not all about money. No. He wants to go home and win some races, and I think finish his career winning as many big races as possible. I think he's probably he's got a few months of that he is able to spend in Japan this year. He's yet to announce when that would be, and that would be subject to JRA approval and being able to get in. If he wanted to ride in, say, November, there's a bit of a queue. I think he's ahead of a few of them there. He's a great record in Japan. Obviously, they'd love to have him there. So watch this space as far as there's nothing locked in. But one thing that isn't locked in, I could think, and we can safely say, is that Joao Moreira won't be making Australia his permanent home just because he's had a great run of success, and we should enjoy it while it lasts. You know, it was great to see him ride the 3 winners there on Saturday, and his interaction with the crowd is just fantastic. So.
Yeah. That's not to say he wouldn't come back for the spring. I think that makes the most sense, doesn't it, to finish now, go off and ride, and then come back for a spring campaign.
Well, I think that there's competition as well, right? You know, October, November in the springtime in Australia, yeah, there's a lot of big races, but October and November in Japan, there's a few as well. There's also a pretty big race in October in Longchamp, France. If you can get a ride in that, you should probably go, the Arc. But I think Japan at that time, looking to the future, is a pretty appealing option. But like he has a lot of options. Obviously, has a great relationship with Chris Waller, who's given him some great support. Yeah, let's see.
All right, lots of talking points then, and lots of good racing coming up over the next 10 days or so. So like and subscribe. Keep following us all the major social channels as well, and tuning in as well for more from Asian Racing Review. Now, we've got a new segment of sorts, Michael, as well. Retro Replay. We've got Champions Day coming up in Hong Kong on April the 30th. Thought it was a good time to look back on a great race from years gone by, and that is the renewal from 2018 and a certain Pakistan star.
Yeah, the 2018 QE2. This was such a for all of the races that I was at Sha Tin for, maybe this was the biggest cheer I've ever heard as the horses rounded the turn when Pakistan Star burst to the front under William Buick. But so much drama. It was all about the drama in the lead up to the race, and not just the lead up to the race, but the previous 18 months. This horse that had shown so much promise, that last to first burst on debut that made him a viral sensation that went around the world. He tailed off last, and that was maybe a sign of things to come, how reluctant Pakistan Star was on that debut run to keep up with the field. It wasn't just because he was slow. He just sometimes arbitrarily decided to stop in races. Yeah. And that became apparent later on that next season, when he was a 1.2 favourite and stopped in the Premier Plate at Sha Tin. Wasn't that some sort of day? I've never heard a jockey booed more just savage. Was just absolutely pillared Moreira that day by the Sha Tin parade ring. People were convinced that you'd think people are convinced about Moreira not being hurt. Well, you'll never be able to tell a Hong Kong racing fan that Joao Moreira didn't stop that horse. There's an element that was just like, he just didn't stop on his own, even though he stopped for every other jockey that got on him afterwards. But leading up to this race, for the 6 months before, it was just a drama. They brought in Monty Roberts, the horse whisperer, to work with the horse, and Tony Cruz to try and get him back moving. And look, he ran some promising races, but this race, the drama wasn't over once they got him to the race. Tommy Berry decided to ride Dan Barite, the Japanese horse. They booked Kieran McAvoy. Kieran McAvoy got an ear infection on race eve. He couldn't fly from Australia on medical advice. They got William Buick at the last minute, and he was in the hot seat on a horse that sometimes just stops, but he did the right thing.
It couldn't have been any more straightforward in the end, could it, for on that particular day?
Well, it was just the way that he jumped out and was just keen and on the bit. And I guess there were certain spots on the track where he had a propensity to stop most. So once he got past that 1,400 meter mark, that's when you kind of knew, like, oh, wow, the tension really built, because he was up on the speed, right in behind the leaders. And when they turned and the gap came, that's when the crowd really got behind him. So, yeah, enjoy the replay. One of the great drama-filled moments. He did win another Group 1 after this, the Champions and Shader Cup as a favourite, but that was about it as far as win. That was his last win.
Well, it'd been his first win since the Griffin Trophy, incredibly enough.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
One of my favourite horses, one of the punters' least favourite horses in Hong Kong, but this was a popular win this day, so enjoy Pakistan Star winning the QE2 Cup in 2018.
Two battles, set, ready, they're off and racing in the QE2 Cup, and Pakistan Star, one of the first to hit the ground. Travelling forward is Time Warp. Dambarite underneath him's got pace, and Pakistan Star kicking through. Dambarite has the ascendancy at the moment over Time Warp, who now is allowed to roll forward, and Time Warp will eventually roll on, although he's kicking up here a little bit, Berry, on Dambarite and making Time Warp work a little bit, but he finds the rail eventually. So Time Warp in his favourite position as pacemaker leads the way from Dambarite in second. Pakistan Star right up on the steel in third. Settling down fourth is Alain, followed then by Eagle Way, who settles the inside of Denozo. 2 lengths further back to Ping Hai Star. He's where most thought he'd be, and a length and a half to Gold Mount last of all. 10 from the pace at the 1200. Time Warp rolls along, half a length to Dambarite. Pakistan Star in third position. He's got his head tilted to the side a little, but he's travelling okay. He's locked up on the rail. Alain's getting a lovely run in fourth, followed by Eagle Way and then Denozo. Ping Hai Star and Gold Mount have tacked on as they really bunch up, running through the bend at the 850. Time Warp's been well rated here by Purton. Leads 3/4 to Dambarite, who's yet to apply pressure. Pakistan Star sweating on the run. Alain's in a good position. He's about to peel. Then came Eagle Way, Denozo. Ping Hai Star's going to get to the middle when they corner. He starts to push now, Moreira. Gold Mount is last of all. Time Warp now feeling some pressure from Dambarite as they swing. Alain rolls out to make a line of 3. Pakistan Star trying to sprint between them. Denozo further out. It's Dambarite joining Time Warp. Pakistan Star is charging through. Then Alain and Eagle Way. Pakistan Star hit the lead at the furlong. Race clear. Out wide on the track is Ping Hai Star. Pakistan Star clear.